If I asked you what the best-selling rum in the world is, you'd probably say Bacardi or Captain Morgan. But the truth is far stranger than that. The world's #1 rum is sold by a company that most people have never even heard of. And that's not the most surprising part. Some of the brands on this list have sold hundreds of millions of bottles and made billions of dollars. Yet many rum enthusiasts criticize them relentlessly. Today, we're exploring the 5 best-selling rum brands on Earth, where they came from, who created them, why they were created, how they conquered their home markets, how they spread across the world, and which one actually deserves its reputation. Make sure you stay until #1, because its story sounds more like a movie than a liquor brand. #5, Havana Club. Today, Havana Club is one of the most recognizable symbols of Cuba. Its story begins in 1934. That was the year the Arechabala family, Spanish immigrants living in Cuba, launched Havana Club with a simple goal: create a rum that captured the spirit of Cuban culture. Like most traditional Cuban rums, it started with sugarcane. The sugarcane was processed into molasses. The molasses was fermented, the liquid was distilled, then aged in oak barrels to develop its flavor. It was a classic rum-making process. But the real twist came in 1959. The Cuban Revolution changed everything. When Fidel Castro came to power, the government took control of many private businesses across the country. Havana Club was one of them. The Arechabala family lost their company and fled Cuba. Imagine spending decades building a brand, only to lose it overnight. But the story didn't end there. For decades, a legal battle has raged over the Havana Club name. On one side stands the Cuban government, on the other stands Bacardi. Billions of dollars have been tied to the dispute, which means Havana Club is more than just a rum. It's a story of politics, revolution, exile, and one of the most famous trademark battles in the alcohol industry. Today, Havana Club sells millions of cases every year and remains one of Europe's most popular rum brands. But its history may be even more famous than the liquid inside the bottle. #4, Captain Morgan. If you've ever been to a party where rum was being served, there's a good chance you've seen Captain Morgan. But here's something many people don't know. Captain Morgan wasn't the name of a modern businessman. The brand was named after Sir Henry Morgan, a 17th century Welsh privateer who became one of the most famous figures in Caribbean history. His image of adventure, danger, and piracy would eventually become the face of the brand. Captain Morgan was launched in 1944 by the Seagram Company. But unlike many traditional rum brands, it didn't focus on producing classic aged rum. Instead, it focused on spiced rum. Rum infused with spices and flavorings designed to appeal to a wider audience. That decision changed everything. The flavor was approachable, smooth, easy to drink, and perfect for people who were new to rum. As a result, sales exploded. But the real genius wasn't just the liquid, it was the marketing. The company turned Captain Morgan into a character, a personality, an icon. Millions of people recognized the pirate before they even recognized the bottle. Critics often argue that Captain Morgan lacks the complexity of more traditional rums. Many enthusiasts view it as a beginner's drink rather than a serious sipping spirit. Yet despite the criticism, Captain Morgan remains one of the best-selling rum brands in the world, because sometimes great marketing can be just as powerful as great craftsmanship. #3. McDowell's #1 celebration. Rum, most of the brands on this list were born on tropical Caribbean islands, but the story of the world's 3rd best-selling rum begins somewhere very different: India. And that's exactly what makes McDowell's different from every other brand on this list. McDowell's #1 celebration rum was created under the United Breweries Group, the same company that would later become famous for brands like Kingfisher. To understand its success, you have to understand India in the 1980s. At the time, imported rum was expensive. For most people, premium Caribbean brands simply weren't an option. But there was a massive demand for rum. Millions of people wanted it. Very few could afford the imported versions. And that's where McDowell's saw an opportunity. The company began producing rum using molasses derived from Indian sugarcane. The process was simple but effective. Molasses was fermented, the liquid was distilled. Different rum stocks were blended together to create a consistent flavour profile. But here's the important part. McDowell's wasn't trying to create the world's most prestigious rum. It wasn't trying to compete with ultra-premium Caribbean brands. Its goal was much simpler. Create a rum that ordinary people could actually afford. And that decision became its greatest strength. While international brands fought for prestige, McDowell's fought for reach. It expanded across cities, across towns, across villages. Before long, it was everywhere. Millions of bottles were being sold every year. But the story takes another interesting turn in the 21st century. United Spirits, the company behind McDowell's, grew into one of the largest alcohol producers in the world. Then came a major corporate shake-up. In 2012, global drinks giant Diageo acquired a significant stake in United Spirits. Suddenly, a brand that had become an Indian household name was now connected to one of the largest alcohol companies on earth. But here's the surprising part. Ask a rum enthusiast in Jamaica, Barbados, or Cuba about the world's great rums, and chances are they won't even mention McDowell's. Yet in terms of sales, it has outsold many brands that receive far more attention online. It's like a student who never gets praised in class, but somehow ends up with the highest score on every exam. Today, McDowell's remains one of India's largest spirit brands, and its story teaches an important lesson. Sometimes quality wins, sometimes prestige wins, but very often availability wins. Number 2, Bacardi. If the rum industry has a superstar, Bacardi. But the company didn't begin as a giant, began as an experiment. The year was 1862. The place was Santiago de Cuba. A Spanish wine merchant named Don Facundo Bacardi Massó believed rum had a serious image problem. At the time, rum was considered rough, harsh, unrefined. It was associated with sailors, labourers, and the lower classes. The wealthy wanted nothing to do with it. Facundo wanted to change. He began experimenting with new production. He introduced charcoal filtration. He worked with specialized yeast strains. He refined the aging process using oak barrels. Today, these techniques seem normal. Back then, they were revolutionary. For the first time, rum could be smoother, cleaner, more sophisticated, and people noticed. Bacardi's reputation grew rapidly. Its sales expanded. Its influence spread across Cuba and beyond. Then history intervened. In 1959, the Cuban Revolution changed everything. Fidel Castro's government nationalized private businesses across the country. Bacardi lost many of its Cuban assets. Imagine spending nearly a century building a company, only to lose your homeland. Most businesses wouldn't survive. Bacardi did, and the reason is remarkable. Years earlier, the company had already moved trademarks and key assets outside Cuba. That decision saved the brand. Instead of disappearing, Bacardi rebuilt itself from places like Puerto Rico and the Bahamas. Over the following decades, it grew into the largest rum company in the world. Perhaps the strangest chapter in its history is still unfolding. For decades, Bacardi and Havana Club have fought one of the longest trademark battles in the alcohol industry. Both brands claim ties to Cuban heritage. Both want ownership of one of the most valuable names in rum, and billions of dollars are at stake. Today, Bacardi sells tens of millions of cases every year, but its greatest achievement may not be the rum itself. Its greatest achievement is surviving the loss of its country and still conquering the world. Number 1, Tanduay. And now we come to the biggest surprise on this entire list. Tanduay. If you live in North America, Europe, or even India, There's a good chance you've never heard of it. Yet for years, Tanduay has ranked among the best-selling rum brands on Earth. In some years, it has even outsold Bacardi. Which raises an obvious question. How can the world's best-selling rum be a brand that most people don't know? The answer begins in 1854, in the Philippines. That makes Tanduay older than many of the famous rum brands people talk about today. At the time, the Philippines was under Spanish colonial rule. Sugarcane production was booming, and alcohol production was becoming a major business opportunity. Tanduay entered the market by producing spirits made from molasses. Over time, the company improved its distillation methods, refined its blending process, expanded its distribution network, and slowly built something extraordinary. The real secret wasn't international expansion. It was domination at home. While Bacardi was building a global empire, and Captain Morgan was becoming a marketing powerhouse, Tanduay was quietly capturing its domestic market year after year, decade after decade, until something almost unbelievable happened. A brand that many Western consumers had never even heard of became one of the highest-selling rum brands in the world. Think about that. It's like discovering that the world's biggest movie star isn't famous in Hollywood, because they're breaking records somewhere else entirely. Today, Tanduay sells millions upon millions of cases every year. Most of those sales come from the Philippines itself, and that's what makes the story so fascinating. Global fame isn't always necessary. Sometimes dominating one enormous market is enough to beat brands that seem much bigger, and that is the secret behind Tanduay, the world's best-selling rum. A brand that much of the world still doesn't know exists, and perhaps the most surprising success story in the entire rum industry. So which of these stories surprised you the most? Havana Club's revolution, Captain Morgan's marketing empire, McDowell's domination of India, Bacardi's survival story, or Tanduay's unbelievable rise to the top? Let me know in the comments below.